Whispers in the Hallway. Table of Contents. Chapter 1. New Girl, New Secrets. Chapter 2. Cryptic Notes. Chapter 3. Unexpected Partnership. Chapter 4. Friendship and Fear. Chapter 5. Clues at the Lighthouse. Chapter 6. The Suspects. Chapter 7. Secrets in the Past. Chapter 8. Close Calls. Chapter 9. Heartfelt Confessions. Chapter 10. The Hidden Room. Chapter 11. Danger and Courage. Chapter 12. Truth Unveiled. Chapter 13. Closure and New Beginnings. Chapter 1. New Girl, New Secrets. Lila Morgan adjusted her backpack nervously as she stepped into the hallways of Seabreeze High. The salty breeze from the coast followed her through the open windows, and the fog rolling off the ocean made the school feel both familiar and eerie. High school wasn't new to her, but this year felt different. Her eyes scanned the crowded corridor. Lockers clanged, students chattered, and the scent of cafeteria pizza lingered. But something caught her attention. A note tucked into her locker, neatly folded. "Meet me at the lighthouse after school. I know your secret." Her heart skipped a beat. A prank? Or something more? Before she could think further, a tall boy with dark hair and intense green eyes appeared beside her locker. He gave a faint, almost shy smile. Are you new here?" she asked, trying to sound casual. "I am," he said. "Ethan Reyes. I just moved here. And you're Lila, right?" Something about the way he said her name made Lila's stomach flutter. But she had no time to dwell on it. The note in her hand burned like a warning. "Do you know anything about this?" she asked, holding up the paper. Ethan's expression turned thoughtful. "Not yet. But if it's a mystery, I'm in." A shiver ran down her spine. Somehow she knew that her life was about to get much more complicated, and the lighthouse, that quiet, looming tower by the cliffs, seemed to be calling her. Chapter 2. Cryptic Notes. Lila shoved her books into her locker, her fingers trembling slightly. The note still felt heavier than a scrap of paper should. "Meet me at the lighthouse after school. I know your secret." Her best friend, Sophie Lynn, appeared beside her, waving energetically. "Lila, you won't believe—" Sophie stopped mid-sentence when she noticed Lila's expression. "Whoa, what's wrong?" Lila hesitated. She didn't want to tell anyone yet, not Sophie, not even her parents. But Sophie had a knack for seeing through lies. I got a weird note," Lila admitted, pulling the folded paper from her pocket. Sophie read it and raised an eyebrow. "Mystery at Seabreeze High already? This place is creepy enough without notes from— Who? A ghost?" Lila shivered. "It doesn't feel like a joke. I think someone's watching me." Sophie's brow furrowed. "Watching you? Seriously? Maybe it's just a prank, or one of those new transfer kids trying to be dramatic." "Maybe," Lila murmured, though deep down she knew it was more than that. Just then, Ethan appeared in the hallway again, leaning casually against a locker across from them. He gave her a small nod. "Thinking of checking out the lighthouse?" he asked. Lila froze. "How did you—" "I overheard," he said with a shrug. "I'm good at noticing things." She rolled her eyes but couldn't suppress the flutter in her chest. Ethan had an air of mystery that was hard to resist. "And why are you telling me this?" "Because," he said, tilting his head with a faint smile, "I like mysteries. And I don't like seeing someone get scared alone." Lila's pulse quickened. There was something about the way he looked at her. Curious, intrigued, but careful. "Fine," she said, tucking the note into her bag. "But don't think this is some kind of date." Ethan's smile widened. "No promises." The rest of the day dragged. Lila kept sneaking glances at the clock, thinking about the lighthouse. The thought of someone, or something, waiting for her there was both terrifying and strangely thrilling. Finally, the last bell rang. Lila stuffed her books into her bag, Sophie at her side. "Just be careful," Sophie warned as they walked toward the edge of the school grounds. "And take your phone. You never know." Lila nodded, clutching her backpack tighter. As she walked toward the foggy cliffs, the lighthouse loomed in the distance, its white paint glowing faintly in the twilight. And waiting there was someone she was only beginning to understand. Chapter 3. Unexpected Partnership. The lighthouse stood silently against the darkening sky, its white walls glowing faintly through the fog. Lila's footsteps crunched on the gravel path leading up to it, her heart hammering in her chest. Ethan was already there, leaning casually against the rusty railing. His dark hair fell over his eyes, but he looked calm, like the lighthouse had been waiting for him too. "You came," Lila said, trying to sound braver than she felt. "Of course," he said with a small grin. "You don't go to mysterious places alone, right?" Lila rolled her eyes, but felt a strange sense of comfort. Together, they made their way inside the lighthouse. The air smelled of salt and damp wood. Dust motes floated in the dim light from the lantern hanging near the spiral staircase. "Do you have any idea why someone would leave a note for you?" Ethan asked, glancing around. Lila shook her head. "No, but it feels urgent, like they need me to find something." They reached the top of the lighthouse, where a small observation room offered a sweeping view of the town and coastline. Lila's eyes immediately caught a piece of paper tucked beneath a loose floorboard. She knelt down and carefully pulled it out. It was a small, folded note, covered in neat, precise handwriting. "Look to where the sea meets the sky. There, the truth waits. But beware, someone is watching." Lila's breath caught. "It's another clue." Ethan leaned closer. "Okay, that's actually creepy, but also kind of exciting, like a real-life treasure hunt." Lila glanced at him. His green eyes sparkled in the fading light, full of curiosity and something she couldn't quite name. "Do you want to help me figure this out?" she asked, surprised at how easily the words left her mouth. Ethan smiled, a little shy this time. "I thought you'd never ask." For the first time that day, Lila felt a thrill that wasn't fear. Together, they began scanning the horizon, looking for anything that could match the clue. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting the ocean in fiery orange and red. Suddenly, Ethan pointed toward a rocky outcrop where the waves crashed violently. "There. That small cave by the rocks. The note says, 'Where the sea meets the sky.' Could be there." Lila's stomach twisted. "Do we go now?" Ethan shrugged. "If we wait until tomorrow, who knows what, or who, might get there first." They descended the lighthouse and made their way down the cliffside trail. The wind whipped around them, tugging at their jackets and sending the notes in Lila's hand fluttering. At the cave, they found more signs, scraps of paper hidden under stones, a small old key tied to a piece of string. "Looks like this is just the beginning," Ethan said softly. He brushed a strand of hair from Lila's face, and for a moment the world felt suspended, just the two of them against the roaring ocean. Lila's heart skipped a beat. The mystery was dangerous, yes, but with Ethan by her side, it suddenly felt like an adventure worth taking. And maybe, just maybe, more than an adventure. Chapter 4. Friendship and Fear. The next morning, Lila couldn't focus on anything in class. Her mind kept replaying the previous evening. The lighthouse, the cave, and that small, mysterious key. Sophie noticed immediately during lunch, her tray clattering as she slid into the bench beside Lila. "Okay, spill. You've been acting like a detective from one of those mystery shows all week," Sophie said, raising an eyebrow. Lila hesitated but finally handed her the key and the note. Sophie's eyes widened. This is serious. Someone's definitely up to something. And you're going to follow the clues?" "I have to," Lila admitted, "but I don't want to go alone." Sophie smirked. "Well, lucky for you, I've got your back. But who's helping you already? That new guy? Lila nodded. Ethan. He's good at noticing things and brave. She paused, unsure if she should admit the flutter in her chest. I trust him. Sophie smiled knowingly. Ooh, romance and mystery? Sounds perfect, but promise me you'll be careful. Lila promised, though part of her couldn't ignore the excitement that came with danger. That afternoon, she and Ethan met at the cave by the cliffs. The key glinted in Lila's hand. I think it fits somewhere nearby, Lila said, scanning the rocky walls of the cave. Ethan crouched beside her. Maybe it opens a box, or a hidden drawer. Suddenly, a shadow moved behind a rock, and Lila froze. Someone had been watching them. Did you see that? She whispered. Ethan's jaw tightened. Yeah. We're not alone. The two of them exchanged a tense glance. Whoever had left the notes, or was following them, was closer than they'd realized. Sophie's words echoed in Lila's mind. Be careful. But curiosity pushed her forward. They moved deeper into the cave, carefully checking every crevice. There, hidden beneath a pile of rocks, was a small, rusted box. Lila inserted the key. It turned with a click. Inside were old photographs, a faded diary, and a map of the coastline with strange symbols marked along it. Ethan picked up the diary, flipping through the pages. These are detailed notes about the town. Someone was hiding something. Lila swallowed hard. And maybe someone still is. A sudden gust of wind swept through the cave, and the sound of footsteps echoed outside. They're back, Lila whispered. Ethan stepped closer to her, protective and calm. We'll deal with them. Together. In that moment, Lila realized that danger wasn't something she could avoid, but with Sophie and Ethan by her side, she felt ready to face it, whatever it turned out to be. And as they left the cave, the sun dipping below the horizon, Lila felt a new sense of purpose. The mystery was bigger than she had imagined, and so was the bond forming between her and Ethan. Chapter 5. Clues at the Lighthouse. The wind howled along the cliffs as Lila, Ethan, and Sophie made their way back to the lighthouse the following evening. The diary and map they had found in the cave burned in Lila's backpack like a secret she couldn't ignore. This map, look, Ethan said, spreading it across the railing at the top of the lighthouse. Strange symbols were scrawled along the coastline, some near abandoned buildings, others near the edge of the cliffs. Do you think this is connected to the missing student? Sophie asked, squinting at the symbols. I don't know yet, Lila admitted, but someone went to a lot of trouble to hide this, and the notes, they're guiding us to something. As they examined the map, Lila's eyes caught a faint scratch on the lighthouse wall, a symbol identical to one on the map. There, she exclaimed, pointing. It's right here on the lighthouse. Ethan examined it closely. It's like a marker. Someone wanted people to find this place, or wanted only certain people to notice. Sophie shivered. Creepy. Very creepy. Lila felt a strange mix of fear and exhilaration. Every clue brought them closer to the truth, but the unknown made her pulse race. Suddenly, a shadow flitted past the window. Lila's stomach dropped. Did you see that? She whispered. Ethan nodded. Someone's watching, or following. We need to be careful. They split up, searching the top of the lighthouse. Lila's fingers traced the wall, and she discovered a small hidden latch. Her heart thumped as she pulled it open, revealing a tiny compartment. Inside was a single photograph, a group of students from years ago, one of whom looked remarkably like the missing student described in the diary. On the back of the photo was a cryptic message. Trust only those who stand beside you. Secrets are buried where the tide meets the cliffs. Lila held the photo tight. This confirms it. Someone is trying to lead us to the truth. Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder, steadying her. We'll figure this out. Together. Sophie rolled her eyes but smiled softly. Just promise me we'll survive this adventure." Lila glanced at the two people she trusted most. For the first time in days, fear felt less overwhelming. They were forming a team, a small trio determined to uncover the secrets hidden in Seabreeze High and the town beyond. As the sun dipped behind the horizon, the waves crashed against the cliffs below, and the lighthouse stood like a silent sentinel. Lila realized that whatever lay ahead would test their courage, their friendship, and maybe even their hearts. Chapter 6. The Suspects. The next morning at Seabreeze High, the corridors seemed different to Lila. Every glance felt heavier, every whisper suspicious. Someone, or maybe multiple people, was watching her. Sophie leaned over their cafeteria table, whispering urgently, "Lila, think about it. Who could be behind the notes? Who would want to scare you like this?" Lila tapped her fingers against the table, her mind racing. It could be anyone. A student, a teacher, even someone from the town who knows about the missing student. Ethan slid into the seat across from them, his dark green eyes sharp. "We need to narrow it down. Let's list everyone who might have a reason." Sophie groaned. "Great, we're profiling the entire school now." "Humor aside, Sophie, this is serious," Ethan said. "Think. Who's been acting strange lately?" Lila frowned, recalling a few odd encounters. Mr. Calder, the history teacher, who seemed to know more than he admitted. Jenna Harper, a senior who disappeared from the debate team last year but never left town. And a few students who were always in the halls at odd times. "Let's keep an eye on all of them," Lila said. "We can't trust anyone completely until we know more." The day dragged on, but nothing overt happened, until chemistry class. Lila reached for her notebook, and a folded piece of paper slipped from the top of her binder. Her heart raced. "Stop digging, or the next clue won't find you alive." Sophie gasped. "What? Lila, that's terrifying." Ethan's jaw tightened. "This isn't a prank anymore. Whoever's behind this is serious and dangerous." Lila swallowed hard. Fear gripped her, but curiosity clawed at her even stronger. She couldn't stop now. After class, the trio met at their secret spot behind the bleachers. Lila showed them the note. "We can't ignore this," Ethan said. "But we also can't back down. The missing student didn't just vanish. Someone knows the truth, and they're trying to scare anyone who gets close." Sophie shivered. "So, what's the plan?" "We follow the clues," Lila said firmly. "But we stay together, and we watch each other's backs." Ethan reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "We'll do this together," he murmured, his voice soft. For a moment, Lila forgot the threats, the fear, and the tension. All that mattered was the warmth of his hand and the promise in his eyes. But the note had reminded her. Danger was real. And in the shadows of Seabreeze High, secrets were waiting, ready to be uncovered. Chapter 7. Secrets in the Past. The next afternoon, Lila, Ethan, and Sophie gathered at Ethan's small apartment overlooking the coastline. Sunlight streamed through the windows, glinting off the ocean waves below. Ethan pulled out the diary they had found in the cave, flipping it open with a nervous expression. "There's something I need to tell you," he said, voice low, "about why I moved here." Lila exchanged a glance with Sophie. "Go on," she said softly. "My family, we left our old town because of something that happened with a missing student there," Ethan confessed. "It wasn't me, but I was connected somehow. People assumed things about me, and it was complicated." Lila's heart pounded. "That's a lot, but why tell me now?" "Because this mystery, it reminds me too much of the past, and I want you to trust me," Ethan said, his green eyes earnest. Lila nodded. She didn't fully understand, but she felt closer to him than ever. There was no judgment, only honesty. Sophie leaned forward, curious as ever. "So the missing student, what's the connection to this town?" Ethan held up the diary. "I think the answers are in here. Whoever left the notes wants someone to uncover the truth, and I think that someone is us." Lila opened the diary, carefully turning the pages. Detailed entries described the missing students' last days, secret meetings, cryptic messages, and mysterious figures lurking near the lighthouse and the cliffs. Some entries even mentioned Seabreeze High, hinting that the town itself had secrets it was desperate to hide. "This is huge," Lila whispered. The missing student didn't just vanish. Someone was covering something up. Ethan nodded. "And whoever it is, they're still watching." The three friends studied the diary for hours, piecing together hints and maps. Each page brought them closer to understanding the truth, but also closer to danger. As the sun began to set, casting an orange glow across the ocean, Ethan and Lila worked side by side, tracing symbols on the map with their fingers. Their hands brushed, and for a brief moment time seemed to stop. I don't want anything to happen to you," Ethan said quietly, looking at her with intensity that made her stomach flutter. Lila's voice caught in her throat. "I feel the same, but we can't stop now. We have to finish this together." Sophie smiled knowingly from across the table. "Ah, you two. But seriously, danger aside, focus. There's still a lot to uncover." Ethan chuckled softly, finally breaking the tension. "Right. We follow the clues, protect each other, and figure out who's been hiding the truth all this time." And as night fell over Seabreeze, the three friends made a silent promise. No matter how dangerous the secrets were, they would uncover them, together. Chapter 8. Close Calls. The fog rolled in thick that night, swallowing the streets of Seabreeze in silence. Lila pulled her jacket tighter as she and Ethan walked side by side along the narrow path leading away from the cliffs. Sophie had insisted on heading home early, promising to dig into old-school records online. "Text me if anything feels off," she'd said, only half joking. Now, with the town eerily quiet, everything felt off. "Do you hear that?" Lila whispered. Ethan stopped walking. "Yeah," he said softly. "Footsteps." They both froze. Behind them, gravel shifted. Lila's heart slammed against her ribs. She turned slowly, but the path behind them was empty, swallowed by fog. "Maybe it's just the wind," she said, though she didn't believe it. Ethan shook his head. "No, someone's been following us since we left my place." They picked up their pace. Lila's thoughts raced. Who would do this? A student? A teacher? Someone from the town? The diary's words echoed in her mind. "Trust only those who stand beside you." Suddenly, a figure stepped out of the fog. Lila gasped. "Relax," the person said quickly. "I'm not here to hurt you." It was Mr. Calder, their history teacher. "What are you doing out here?" Ethan demanded, stepping protectively in front of Lila. Mr. Calder looked tired, older somehow. "I was hoping I'd run into you," he said quietly. "You've been asking dangerous questions." Lila swallowed. "You know about the missing student?" Mr. Calder hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, and I know whoever made them disappear never wanted the truth uncovered." A chill ran down Lila's spine. "Then why threaten me?" "I didn't," he said sharply. "But someone else did. Someone who still has power in this town." Before Lila could ask more, a loud crash echoed behind them. A rock flew past, hitting the pavement near their feet. "Run!" Ethan shouted. They didn't hesitate. Lila's lungs burned as they sprinted toward the main road, the fog closing in behind them. Footsteps followed, fast, deliberate. They ducked into a side street just as headlights appeared, forcing whoever followed them to disappear into the shadows. Breathing hard, Lila leaned against Ethan, shaking. "That wasn't a warning," she whispered. "That was a threat." Ethan wrapped his arms around her, steady and warm. "I won't let anything happen to you," he said, his voice fierce. Lila looked up at him, fear and adrenaline mixing with something deeper. In that moment, fog, danger and all, she realized how much she trusted him, and how much she cared. Somewhere behind them, the town of Seabreeze kept its secrets locked tight. But not for long. Chapter 9. Heartfelt Confessions. The rain started just as Lila reached her front door. She barely noticed it. Her hands were still shaking from the close call, her thoughts tangled between fear and the way Ethan had pulled her into his arms without hesitation. She hadn't slept much that night. Every creak of the house made her heart jump. By morning, exhaustion weighed heavily on her shoulders. At school, everything felt strangely normal. Students laughed, lockers slammed, teachers lectured. No one else seemed to realize how close danger had come the night before. Lila spotted Ethan near the lockers before first period. He looked just as tired, dark circles under his eyes. "Did you sleep?" she asked quietly. He shook his head. "Not really. You?" She gave a small smile. "Same." They walked together without speaking, the silence comfortable but heavy with unspoken thoughts. Later that afternoon, Ethan texted her, "Meet me at the beach after school, somewhere public. I want to talk." The beach was nearly empty when Lila arrived. The sky was soft with late afternoon light, waves rolling in gently like the ocean was trying to soothe her nerves. Ethan stood near the water, hands in his pockets. "I didn't want to talk about this in messages," he said when she approached. "Too easy for things to get misunderstood." Lila nodded. "I get that." They walked slowly along the shore, sand cool beneath their feet. "Last night scared me," Ethan admitted. "Not just because someone was following us, but because I realized how much I care about you." Lila stopped walking. He turned to face her, eyes serious. "I didn't mean to get involved in this. I didn't mean to let myself feel anything. But somewhere between the lighthouse and the diary and you trusting me, it just happened." Her heart pounded. "I've moved around my whole life," Ethan continued. "Every time things got complicated, we left. I promised myself I wouldn't get attached again." He exhaled slowly. "But I already am." Lila swallowed hard, emotions swelling in her chest. "I've always played it safe," she said. "I watch, I observe, I write things down instead of living them. But this," she gestured to the ocean, the town behind them, the mystery surrounding them. "This changed me." She met his eyes. "You changed me." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The waves filled the silence. Then Ethan reached for her hand. "Whatever happens next," he said softly, "I want to face it with you." Lila squeezed his hand. "Me too." He leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. Their kiss was gentle, uncertain at first, then warm, real, grounding. For the first time since the notes began, Lila felt something stronger than fear. Hope. Later that evening, Sophie called. "I found something," she said, voice urgent. "Old school records. Mr. Calder wasn't the only teacher connected to the missing student." Lila sat up. "Who else?" "The former principal," Sophie said. "And guess what? He still lives in town." The mystery wasn't over, but Lila wasn't afraid anymore. Not with Ethan beside her. Chapter 10. The Hidden Room. The old house sat at the edge of town, half hidden by overgrown hedges and years of neglect. Lila stared at it from across the street, her heart pounding. "That's the former principal's place?" she asked quietly. Sophie nodded, adjusting her hoodie. "Yep, retired early, never moved away. And according to old records, he was the last person to see the missing student before she disappeared." Ethan stood close to Lila, his presence steadying. "We're not breaking in," he said firmly. "We observe. We look for anything suspicious." The sky darkened as clouds rolled in, casting long shadows across the street. The house looked empty, but Lila had learned better than to trust appearances. They circled around the back, careful to stay quiet. That's when Sophie stopped suddenly. "There," she whispered, pointing. A faint light flickered beneath the house, barely visible through a cracked basement window. "That's not normal," Ethan murmured. They crept closer. The window was dusty, but intact. Lila wiped a small patch clean and peered inside. Her breath caught. "There's a room down there," she said. Not a normal basement. It looks hidden. Old shelves lined the walls, papers were stacked everywhere, and in the center, an old desk covered in photographs. "Okay," Sophie whispered. "That's officially creepy." The back door was locked, but the frame was weak. With careful pressure, Ethan managed to push it open just enough for them to slip inside. The air smelled like dust and old paper. Every step echoed too loudly. They found the basement stairs behind a door near the kitchen. Slowly, quietly, they descended. The hidden room was worse up close. Newspaper clippings were taped to the walls, about the missing student, about Seabreeze High, about unconfirmed rumors and quiet investigations. Photographs were pinned together with red string. Lila's stomach twisted. "This isn't curiosity," she whispered. "This is obsession." Sophie picked up a folder, flipping through it. "These are student records, personal ones. He shouldn't have had access to these." Ethan stood frozen near the desk. "Lila, come look at this." On the desk lay a journal. Unlike the others, this one was clean, recent. Lila opened it carefully. The handwriting was shaky but deliberate. She was going to talk. She didn't understand what would happen if the truth came out. "I had to protect the school, protect the town." Lila's hands trembled. "He didn't just know," she whispered. "He did something." Footsteps creaked above them. All three froze. A door slammed upstairs. "He's home," Sophie breathed. Ethan grabbed Lila's hand. "We need to get out, now." They hurried toward the stairs, but a voice stopped them cold. I wondered how long it would take. The former principal stood at the top of the stairs, blocking their escape. His eyes flicked from one face to the next, calm but sharp. "You kids should have stayed curious," he said softly, "but not brave." Lila stepped forward despite her fear. "What did you do to her?" Silence stretched. Then he sighed. "I didn't mean for it to happen the way it did, but she wouldn't stop asking questions." The weight of his words crashed down on them. "You hurt her," Ethan said, voice shaking with anger. The man's expression hardened. "I protected everything I built." Sirens wailed in the distance. Sophie's eyes widened. "I called the police when we came in, just in case." For the first time, panic flickered across the man's face. Within minutes, flashing lights filled the street. Officers stormed the house, escorting the former principal away as he shouted about lies and misunderstandings. Lila sank onto the basement steps, her legs giving out. "It's over," Sophie whispered. Ethan knelt beside Lila, pulling her into his arms. "You were brave," he said softly. "You uncovered the truth." Lila closed her eyes, breathing him in. The mystery had nearly destroyed them, but it had also changed them forever. Chapter 11. Danger and Courage. The police lights faded into the distance, leaving the street eerily quiet. Lila sat wrapped in a blanket in the back of the patrol car, staring out at the ocean beyond the houses. The truth had come out, but it didn't feel like victory. It felt heavy. Ethan sat beside her, his arm around her shoulders, grounding her every time the night threatened to overwhelm her. Sophie paced nearby, talking quickly to an officer. "We didn't know how dangerous it was at first," she said, "but we couldn't ignore it." Mr. Calder arrived shortly after, his face pale when he saw Lila. "I'm so sorry," he said quietly. "I tried to warn you without putting you in danger. I didn't think he'd go this far." Lila looked up at him. "You were trying to help?" He nodded. "Years ago, I suspected something wasn't right, but people in power silenced questions. When I realized you were uncovering the truth, I hoped you'd succeed where we failed." The weight of the past settled over them. The missing student's case was reopened officially the next morning. News spread fast through Seabreeze. Whispers filled hallways, faces turned serious, and teachers spoke in hushed tones. At school, Lila felt different. Stronger, steadier. Students she barely knew thanked her. Some looked at her with awe. Others looked away, ashamed they'd ignored rumors for so long. During lunch, Sophie dropped into her seat with a dramatic sigh. "Well," she said, "we survived. Barely." Lila smiled faintly. "Because of you." "And because of him," Sophie added, glancing at Ethan. Ethan reached for Lila's hand under the table. She squeezed it back. That afternoon, Lila stood alone at the lighthouse, the wind gentle this time. The place that once felt threatening now felt peaceful. Ethan joined her, standing close but not crowding her thoughts. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded. "I think I learned something. Being scared doesn't mean being weak. It means you care." Ethan smiled. "You were the bravest person out there." She turned to him. "We were." The sun dipped low, painting the sky in gold and lavender. For the first time since the first note appeared, Lila felt free, but closure still waited. Chapter 12. Truth Unveiled. The assembly hall was silent. Lila sat between Ethan and Sophie, her hands folded tightly in her lap as the principal stepped up to the podium. The air felt heavier than usual, like everyone was holding their breath. "Today," the principal said, voice steady, "we acknowledge a painful truth about our past." Behind him, a screen flickered to life, showing a photograph of Mara Ellison, the missing student whose name had haunted the town for years. She was smiling in the photo, unaware of what was coming. Lila's chest tightened. "The investigation has confirmed that Mara uncovered evidence of misconduct involving school leadership years ago," the principal continued. "When she attempted to report it, she was silenced." A murmur rippled through the room. She was threatened, manipulated, and ultimately forced to leave town under false pretenses. Her disappearance was covered up to protect reputations. Lila closed her eyes briefly. She didn't vanish. She was pushed away. After the assembly, the three of them walked outside together, the sky bright but solemn. "So she survived," Sophie said softly. "She just lost everything else." Ethan nodded. Her voice, her safety, her home. Later that afternoon, Lila sat at her desk, staring at her laptop screen. An email blinked at the top of her inbox. From M. Ellison. Her breath caught. Hands trembling, she opened it. "Lila, I don't know how to thank you." I watched from a distance as the truth finally surfaced. "I never thought anyone would finish what I started. You were braver than I ever was. Because of you, I can finally come home." Tears slipped down Lila's cheeks. Ethan read the message over her shoulder, his arm wrapping around her. "You gave her back her life," he said quietly. "No," Lila whispered. "We did." That evening, the lighthouse beam cut through the darkness once more, steady and strong. Lila stood at the railing, the diary tucked safely in her bag, no longer a burden, but proof. Proof that truth mattered, proof that courage could change things. Ethan laced his fingers through hers. "Whatever happens after this," he said, "I'm not running anymore." She smiled up at him. "Good, because neither am I." Behind them, Seabreeze finally exhaled. The mystery was solved. But the story wasn't quite finished. Chapter 13. Closure and New Beginnings. Spring arrived quietly in Seabreeze. The fog lifted more often now, revealing bright mornings and calm blue skies. The town felt lighter, like it had finally released a breath it had been holding for years. Lila stood on the steps of Seabreeze High, watching students spill into the courtyard, laughing and talking freely. Things had changed. Not just the school, but her. Sophie bounced up beside her, grinning. "Can you believe this year is almost over? Also, I'm never investigating a mystery again without snacks and backup." Lila laughed. "You were the backup." "And the brains," Sophie added proudly. Across the courtyard, Ethan leaned against a tree, watching Lila with a soft smile. When their eyes met, something warm and steady passed between them. No fear, no uncertainty, just understanding. Later that afternoon, Lila returned to the lighthouse one last time before summer. The door creaked as she stepped inside, the familiar scent of salt and wood filling the air. She climbed to the top slowly, memories echoing with every step. This place had once terrified her. Now, it felt like a beginning. Ethan joined her as the sun dipped toward the horizon. "I figured you'd be here," he said gently. "I needed to say goodbye," Lila replied. "To the mystery, to the fear." He nodded. "And hello to what's next?" She smiled. "Exactly." They stood together as the lighthouse beam swept across the ocean, steady and strong. "I used to think love made you vulnerable," Ethan said quietly, "like it was something that could be taken away." Lila turned to him. "Now? Now I think it makes you brave." She reached for his hand. "You stayed." "So did you." Below them, the waves rolled in endlessly, unchanged but comforting. That night, Lila opened her journal and began to write. Not about secrets, not about fear, but about truth, about friendship, about first love that bloomed in the middle of chaos and survived. Her story. And as she wrote the final line, she realized something beautiful. Some mysteries are meant to be solved. Others, like love, are meant to be lived. The end. Whispers in the hallway. Table of contents. Chapter 1. New Girl, New Secrets. Chapter 2. Cryptic Notes. Chapter 3. Unexpected Partnership. Chapter 4. Friendship and Fear. Chapter 5. Clues at the Lighthouse. Chapter 6. The Suspects. Chapter 7. Secrets in the Past. Chapter 8. Close Calls. Chapter 9. Heartfelt Confessions. Chapter 10. The Hidden Room. Chapter 11. Danger and Courage. Chapter 12. Truth Unveiled. Chapter 13. Closure and New Beginnings. Chapter 1. New Girl, New Secrets. Lila Morgan adjusted her backpack nervously as she stepped into the hallways of Seabreeze High. The salty breeze from the coast followed her through the open windows, and the fog rolling off the ocean made the school feel both familiar and eerie. High school wasn't new to her, but this year felt different. Her eyes scanned the crowded corridor. Lockers clanged, students chattered,